Thank you. The first question from our audience goes to the candidate who delivered the first opening statement, and that will be Bob Corker. That question is from Van Patten. Go ahead with your question, sir.
2,741 U.S. soldiers have been killed in Iraq. The war on terror has directly killed a minimum of 62,000 people, created 4.5 million refugees, and cost the U.S. more than the sum needed to pay off the debts of every poor nation on earth. If estimates of other unquantified deaths are included, then the toll could reach as high as 180,000. If elected senator, what are you going to do to end the war in Iraq and bring the troops home?
Mr. Corker, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that question. And like all Tennesseans, I'm greatly, and all Americans, I'm concerned about the men and women in Iraq. I've visited Fort Campbell. I've seen men and women from our city and across the state who have gone to serve there, and I am concerned. Obviously, things are not going well in Iraq, and we do need to look at new strategies there. And I'm thrilled that James Baker, a former Secretary of State, is bringing people together to really break down this discussion that's either a cut-and-run strategy or a stay-the-course strategy. Somewhere in between, we've got to figure out new ways of solving the problems that we have in Iraq and allowing that emerging democracy that's now gone through 3 milestones to actually move ahead. Certainly one of the things we need to do is we need to make sure that we disarm the militias. You can imagine, think about John Kerry and George Bush in this last presidential election having a militia of their own. That's what's going on in Iraq now, and that is that individual politicians have militias there that need to be disarmed, and the country needs to come together around the Iraqi security forces that are there being trained. We need to really focus on the hot spots. We need to make sure that places like Baghdad are secure. And we need to make sure that the police men and women on the ground do those things to make sure that civility is there and that people can go about creating an economic stake in the country. I know that Congressman Ford referred to dividing the country up. That's something that European countries did after World War II in the Middle East. And they self-imposed boundaries that the people there did not have a stake in. I really believe that the people on the ground in Iraq, both the military commanders that are trying to govern what happens there in a way to cause the country to be able to secure itself.
Mr. Corker, I have to stop you. Your time is up. I have to stop you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
That was an awfully quick 3 minutes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Misread the sign.
I have 2 minutes left. Thank you. Now, what was the question? I do think we need to enable the military commanders on the ground to have the things that they need, the troops, the gear, the equipment, the ability to change the strategies on the ground. And we need to listen less to people in Washington about what needs to happen there. As far as the democracy itself that's on the ground, I really think that we need to continue to support them as they work with the various factions that are on the ground. My guess is that their vision of what Iraq is going to be over the long term is going to change a great deal, just like it did here in America. It took years from the time we declared our independence to really create the vision as far as how our country would go ahead. And my guess is there will be a looser federation that will take place in Iraq. But I think we need to allow the people there on the ground, the people that are working with the various factions on the ground, to determine that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ford, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
There's a big difference between Mr. Corker now on this issue. Less than a month ago, Mr. Corker said that we should stay the course. I don't believe we can afford to stay the course any longer. We've stayed the course now for 3 years. My opponent indicates that he wants to follow the leadership of the commanders on the ground. 6 commanders, 6 generals who have returned from combat in Iraq and Afghanistan have called for Secretary Rumsfeld to resign, largely because they believe that the strategy we've pursued has failed. We don't need any more stay-the-course rubber stamps in Washington. What we need is a new course and a new set of directions. I happen to believe that decentralizing in the 3 regions would put us on a course modeled after Bosnia to reduce the sectarian violence, to give the people there an opportunity to build a country in their way, using their resources, their tools, and their idea of democracy and liberty.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Now, the second question is for Harold Ford, and that is from Regina Kane.
Good evening, Representative Ford.
Good evening, Ms. King.
A recent TV ad says that you have missed hundreds of votes in the House during your tenure. If this is not true, how many votes have you missed? And if it is true, what are your reasons for missing so many votes, and why do you think this is acceptable?
Ms. King, I thank you for the question. My time in the Congress of 10 years, I've made 93% of the votes in the United States Congress. In the last 2 years, in my quest to run for the United States Senate, I have missed some votes, and I made that clear from the very beginning. Many of them procedural votes, or votes where you had such a wide margin that my vote was not necessarily one that would swing it one way or the other. I admit readily to you that running for the Senate and maintaining a full-time job in the Congress has been a challenge. But a 93% record, I don't know about schools here in Chattanooga, but that's a pretty decent grade where I come from in Memphis. Say this, I'm proud of what I've been able to do in the Congress, though, for 10 years. Not proud of all the things that Congress has done. Remember, I've been in the minority party now for 10 years. So to have your name on a piece of legislation when you're in the minority is very hard to achieve. I'll tell you 2 things I'm really proud of. Just last year, President Bush attempted to sell the management of our ports to the United Arab Emirates, a country that was home to 2 of the 9/11 hijackers and financed, or should we say laundered money, to finance much of what happened to our country on September the 11th. I made it clear to President Bush then that I'll be with you when you're right, sir, as I was with the Patriot Act, as I was with our defense bills, but I can't stand with you when you're wrong. When he attempted to grant amnesty to illegal aliens in this country, I said, no, Mr. President, I can't stand with you on that because I don't believe that. However, when he said, let's go and find bin Laden, I sided with him. 5 years later, we still haven't found him, though. When he indicated that we should go into Iraq and remove Saddam Hussein, I went with him. I thought he might have had a plan for after finding Saddam Hussein, but we didn't have that. There have even been local things we've done in Memphis that I've been very proud of. My first term in the Congress, I don't know of a freshman member who was able to secure more than $150 million for the expansion of his runway. We're home to a little package delivery company that we're very proud of called FedEx. They needed that, and we worked to get it. No other member of Congress in his freshman term or in the minority was able to achieve that. The other thing I'm proud of is we brought Teach for America and new leaders for new schools in Memphis, working with the private sector, primarily the Hyde Foundation in Memphis, the founder of AutoZone, and working with them again to bring Wendy Kopp's organization to our city school system. We all realize that education is the key that will unlock a greater future for Chattanooga, for Memphis, and for this country. I happen to think we can do a far better job. Early childhood education, paying our teachers what they're worth, and ensuring that kids who are good in chemistry, physics, and biology have equal opportunity to go to college, like kids who can throw a football, shoot a basketball, or throw a baseball pretty doggone fast. That's what I've done in Memphis. That's what I've done in the Congress. And if you send me to the Senate, I'll make you as proud as I did the people in Memphis who re-elected me by a margin of 83% 4 straight times.
Mr. Corker, 1 minute.
Well, I do think there's a tremendous difference between the way Congressman Ford and myself approach the public arena. I have a tremendous amount of work ethic, and I wake up each day wanting to make the most of it and solving problems. When I was here as mayor, I literally would count down the number of days until the term ended to try to get everything that I possibly could done. Congressman Ford is a great talker, and he does a great job on these talk show hosts and those kinds of things. But the fact of the matter is, it really takes hard work and focus to solve our country's problems. That's one I want to take to the United States Senate. I think we face some of the most complex issues in my lifetime in the United States, and I think it takes being there working with others to actually solve the problems. Thank you.